Let's live in a world where the White Sox don't trade Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. at the trade deadline. With them as the foundation pieces, let's see if the Sox are capable of being competitive again in 2025. Next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, it's the All-Star break, and the Sox are the first team ever to lose 70 games before reaching the break. For being such a bad team, the Sox have two elite players in Crochet and Robert Jr., and a pitcher who has turned out to be the best free agent signing in Eric Fedde. MLB.com White Sox beat reporter Scott Merkin posed an interesting scenario where if the Sox somehow keep Crochet and Fedde, they could anchor a rotation next season that could include promising young arms in Drew Thorpe, Noah Schultz, Hayden Smith, and Jonathan Cannon. All right, now the Sox must trade Fedde, at least because he's in his 30s and he only has 1 year left on his deal. And he should have enough value to get back a prospect who can project to be an impact bat that the team desperately needs. Still, the White Sox have the potential to have a very good starting rotation if they do not trade Crochet. So let's explore if the front office can make some moves that would be enough to get them back to being competitive in 2025. So we'll do that in the first segment. Then the draft just wrapped up, so let's recap what the Sox did in day 2 and day 3 of the draft. And finally, it's Way Back Wednesday. So let's go over some White Sox players who you might have forgotten that made the All-Star team for the Southsiders. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So the Sox might be able to feature a starting rotation next season that is capable of keeping them in games, much like this season. But it is doubtful the team gets back to being competitive next year for one simple reason. It's doubtful ownership will commit to the money that is needed to spend to get them there. What it'll take is money, and none of the rookies that they potentially might be starting next season having any struggles whatsoever. So basically, you got to spend a lot, and you also need to hope that it's 1990 all over again. And you also have to hope for to avoid regression from key players such as Crochet, Thorpe, and Cannon. And you got to hope Luis Robert Jr. actually stays healthy. And now there is some promise in the holes in their lineup that they're going to have to address, because right now, outside of the starting rotation, the only thing that I could say for sure is set for next season is left field, because you got Andrew Benintendi's contract there, which is an albatross around their neck. Center field, if you keep Luis Robert Jr., and then first base, I'm assuming that they're probably not going to trade Andrew Vaughn. I know he's been the subject of trade rumors. DH, you might have some cover there in Gavin Sheets, but obviously you can upgrade. Otherwise, you do have promise in Jacob Gonzalez at second, Colson Montgomery at short, Edgar Caro at catcher, Brian Ramos at third. You still probably have some question marks in right field, considering Oscar Colas hasn't proven he can drive the ball in the big leagues. But if they go with the rookie route, usually rolling out a lot of rookies in your starting lineup means learning the game, and that usually means losing, because they're going to go through some struggles. They're going to hit, like we saw with Brian Ramos. He came up, he was hitting. Then baseball made the adjustment, and he wasn't obviously given the chance to make the adjustment, but still, he showed baseball made the adjustment, and then he was going to struggle. And in terms of who might be ready, Carroll might be the only prospect you can envision that'll be ready to break with the team at spring training. You know, he's already up at AAA. Montgomery, he's still struggling with velocity, so he might need at least another half a season at AAA. Gonzalez still needs some AAA at-bats, because while I believe when you develop a pitcher, you should develop them at Double-A and use Triple-A as your parking lot / make some adjustments if you bring them up from Double-A, you want to get some Triple-A at bats for these prospects because it's the closest that they're going to get to simulating major league pitching. It's not close, but it's still going to be more elite stuff that they're going to face. So you probably need those guys getting some at bats, and Ramos is still unknown if he can be consistent. So let's say the Sox have to fill 4 positions in their lineup. They also are going to have to build out a bullpen. And that's not something that exactly gets fixed, even if they enter the offseason with just 2 guaranteed deals in Benintendi and LRJ, and that's just a cost of $32.1 million, because I'm assuming they're declining the options on basically everybody they have. They should not bring back Martin Maldonado, Eloy Jimenez, and Yohan Moncada. And also, let's not forget the Sox have to make the right call at replacing manager Pedro Grifol, because there's no way you can bring him back next season. It's one of the reasons why the Sox are 8 wins below expected, is in part because of his bad leadership. So let's start first with the manager. My first call is to see if Terry Francona wants to get back into managing. If he says yes, you hire him on the spot. He has connections to your organization when he was a Double-A manager for the Birmingham Barons, so you know Jerry's going to like that. But he's also a plus manager. He can actually add wins to your team. But if he says no, then you try to get Skip Shoemaker away from the Marlins, because even though he's got ties to Tony La Russa, at least he's got credentials. And then if both say no, I think you got 2 guys in your back pocket. Sergio Santos, you can promote from Double-A, or Charlie Montoya, the bench coach. And I know it's a short list, but the Sox just need a net neutral or a net positive manager. So in this case, I don't think they need to go out and cast this huge wide net like they should have done with the general manager. You know, I honestly think it's 2 calls, and then you got some guys that you can easily just say here, because it's probably going to be a rebuilding, because as I keep going through this, guys, it's not looking like they can get back to being competitive in 2025, because the White Sox have a huge gulf in F4 they have to make up for if they want to compete with, say, the Guardians. And I know the season hasn't completed, and there's a lot that actually goes into season projections when the front offices calculate, or a lot of people, people who are a lot smarter than me, like Jim Margulis of Sox Machine, put into this when it comes to what type of WAR they need to add, RWRC plus, all that stuff. But let's just keep it simple. In terms of like F4, wins above replacement, that the Sox would have to add to, bridge the gulf, they got to add 6.3 in F4 to even match what the Guardians currently have right now. The Guardians are at 16.1. The Sox are at 9.8. The Sox also have to make up a 141 run gap in runs scored and 121 runs given up gap to even match what the Guardians have this season. And that is on top of the Sox needing to improve their bullpen and their lineup to cover the minus 177 run differential right now. But why did this spark my interest? I saw this tweet. It was from @SoxSupporter1. He sent this tweet to Josh Nelson from Sox Machine and Beef Loaf from the 108. Love those guys. But he added this. So this is his tweet on X, formerly Twitter. By adding 3 mid-range FAs in the offseason, the Sox could be competitive fairly soon. 1, Santander, a must, 5 years, $90 million. 2, Han Sing Kim, I just probably butchered that name, can play all positions, 5-year, $50 million. 3, Jesse Winker, check his stats, has been pretty good this year. 2 years, $8 million. Thoughts? And I thought it was an interesting idea that the Sox can add some players who that they might actually sign too. Kim is a 2.5 F4 player, very good defender, 226 average, but has a 327 OBP. Santander, he's a guy that I've really wanted the Sox to get. He's going to be 30 next season, but all he's ever done is hit for power. He's got 24 dingers at the break, and the only reason why the Sox are going to let him walk, the Orioles are going to let him walk, is because they have cheaper, just as good replacements in their farm system. It's just a cost thing for them. And Winker's had some decent seasons. He's had some bad seasons. But you know what he does? He gets on base. Although I'm not a huge fan of giving Santander 5 years, but I am a fan of his work. And again, if you're going to pay the largest contract in franchise history Pay it to a power hitter who will actually hit home runs in a power park. And the Sox could go chase Willy Adames. They're not going to chase Juan Soto. Trust me. They should, because they need a superstar if Jerry wants his, stadium built, but he's not. But Willy Adames would be great too. 3.3 F4. And who knows if Montgomery can actually field the position, but he's going to be at over 100 million with how shortstops get paid. And the Brewers have even said they're not even close to signing him to an extension because of the cost. So I doubt the Sox are going to pursue Adames or Kim. I have a feeling it's just going to be, they're going to re-sign Nicky Lopez to cover second base and shortstop. And it's going to be young players. And they're going to have to try to rebuild within. They'll have a rotation, even with Crochet. If they trade him away, they might have a rotation that'll keep them in games. But we might be looking at another repeat of next season. And oh boy. But also the biggest reason is Josh Nelson. He replied in his tweet that I referenced above. I like the targets. What I need to know from the White Sox is how will a new TV network impact the revenue? Winker's contract might be the highest they are willing to go next year if revenues dry up. And that's a big thing that we're missing is if the Sox can't get their new TV network on Comcast and get those streaming rights agreements with the providers, that's going to put a huge dent in the Sox revenue streams. And we already know the Sox are losing money left and right. And owner Jerry Reinsdorf loves his TV deals. And if he does not secure a sufficient one, what makes you think he would authorize a huge spending spree? Well, at least just hope next season might be like 2019. Let's just hope that they bring up some young guys and at least it's fun bad. Well, the White Sox wrapped up day 2 and 3 of a pivotal MLB draft. I'll go over some of the names that the Sox picked that might be able to help them someday next on Locked On White Sox. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trade Master program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, and you can turn $10 into $1,000. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. And as I always tell you, my old college buddy always tells me on the text chain how much he loves using PrizePicks to make his selection since he lives behind the cheddar curtain. I think PrizePicks is great for just how simple of a concept it is and how fun it is to play. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's the All-Star break for the White Sox. They won't be back in action until this Friday against the Kansas City Royals. First pitch on the 19th is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there, like the CHGO White Sox podcast. Had Vinny Duber, their White Sox beat reporter, join me yesterday on yesterday's show. Hope you get a chance to check that out. I just always ask, make me your first listen. Put me in your rotation at least. Especially if you are a fan that have checked out, but still want to check in every now and again. I'm here. I'm watching the storm, as they say. I'm like that reporter on weather.com who's like chained during a hurricane that's saying, it's windy out here. That's me. I'm right here. All right, so I've read reports that day 2 of the MLB draft was underwhelming for the Sox, but I liked what the Sox did as a whole in this year's draft. And I get that the folks that follow prospects and the draft have more informed opinions. But when it comes to drafting, and Vinny talked about it yesterday on the show, it's all a crapshoot. So to me, it's all about the process. And what encourages me is the Sox finally have a good one. They're going to take left-handed pitchers who have good size and throw from a 3/4 arm angle, especially early in the draft. They're going to take shortstops early too. And otherwise, they went with guys who have some pop in their bat, and they loaded up on pitching on day 3, which I endorse. You can never have enough pitching. Even though the Sox have a ton of pitching right now, get more. You've got a proven track record that you can develop pitchers. And some of these guys might just turn out to be bullpen arms. And you know what? Having cheap bullpen arms on a team that has limited financial resources is what you need. Because as I keep repeating, that is what sunk the last rebuild. They went college after round 2, though I'm a little mixed about that. On one hand, I think it's a great way to make sure you can get a player to actually sign, and it can't hurt. You want to make sure that you cash in on these draft picks. I mean, this is 20 ways, and the Sox actually had 21 picks. This is 21 ways to basically get a player where you don't have to really outbid anybody. You just got to select them. You got to scout them. So it's a great way to add talent. But I would have preferred they take a few swings on some high schoolers and JUCO kids and see if they could overslot them to skip college and steal a potential first rounder one day. However, with the bonus money that they're probably going to have to pay out on their day 1 picks, it probably wasn't this way this year. So I get the logic, and I'll get to that in a second. They did take a massive swing, though, with their final pick in high schooler Miles Bailey. He's a massive first baseman out of Lincoln High School in Florida. And I know I said I would never really draft a first baseman, but this is a great exception. You know, you're talking about a guy he's huge. He's got great power. He was ranked as the 145th prospect in the draft according to MLB Pipeline. The only reason why he's falling is he looks to be a hard Florida State commit, if memory serves me right. But, you know, if the Sox can get some of these so-called underwhelming day 2 picks signed to lower deals, they could take a run at them. And that's what I like about the process. Why not take a gamble on that? That's a perfect way of using basically your final pick, which is a bonus pick. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over every pick, but here's the breakdown of the 21 players the Sox selected in terms of position. 1 catcher, 1 first baseman, 1 shortstop. Would have preferred to see more. I mean, really, you should be drafting a lot of shortstops and center fielders. They drafted 5 outfielders, but more corner outfielders, which, okay, later rounds, it's not the end of the world. 1 third baseman, 1 two-way player, but who's more likely going to be a DH, and 11 pitchers. And I like that they drafted pitching because, again, you could never have enough, and you have a track record of developing it. You got Brian Bannister, basically a pitching whisperer, who can bring a good support system to get these guys to the major leagues. So keep taking spins at the wheel. But day 2 was considered underwhelming with the lack of ranked players. But as SoxMachine.com's Jim Margulis pointed out, the Sox may have extended themselves on day 1. And I talked about those picks on Monday. So they needed to rein in on the spending on day 2. And James Fox, a future Sox, pointed this out on X, formerly Twitter, at what scouting director Mike Shirley said, at James Fox 917. Mike Shirley also noted that they saved some bonus pool space to be aggressive early on day 3, but it seems like they spread pretty close to their bonus pool already. One moment. As you can tell, guys, I'm still battling this cold. So for those watching on YouTube, pop it on the halls to make sure I'm not hacking up a lung. Now, none of the White Sox picks made MLB.com Sam Dykstra's day 2 intriguing picks. But as James Fox pointed out on X, Shirley liked the big program players they got. Mike Shirley said he was, quote, very excited about college position players, end quote, that the White Sox selected. He praised Nick McLean, Casey Saki, and Sam Antetokounmpo. I'm going to butcher this name. Antetokounmpo for their big performances at big programs. One moment. But if you want full write-ups, and I have to figure out how to pronounce the kid's name from Coastal Carolina. I'm sorry about that. But James, Ian Escoridge, and Elijah Evans from Future Sox, they have breakdowns on futuresox.net. So does soxmachine.com, soxon35th.com, and southsidesox.com. I even put up a couple trackers on Southside Showdown. So if you want to kind of know who do they get. But even though day 2 was impressive, some of the picks the Sox made on day 3 were impressive. 4 picks came up on Sam Dykstra's day 3 intriguing picks. So let me share that with you. He's got round 13. They selected Pierce George with the 379th overall pick. This is what they said on Pure Stuff. George has one of the most electric arms in this class. His fastball averages around 99 miles per hour and touches 102. Could be a closer. He had round 16's picks. TJ McCants, outfielder of Alabama. He had a 306, 375, 583 slash line with 14 homers and 15 steals. Good runner, capable center fielder. We'll have to figure out his pitch selection. Lyle Miller Green. This is the two-way player out of Austin Peay. Great story. He was born in Siberia, was adopted at age 1 and moved to Virginia. He's Austin Peay's first team All-American. Can throw, but he's probably going to be more of a hitter, and he's a power hitter. The reason why he fell is he's like 24. And then, like I said, Miles Bailey was another one that made the intriguing picks. Well, the All-Star game was yesterday. Garrett Crochet pitched a clean inning. It is Wednesday, and I'd like to discuss the better days during this miserable season. So let's talk about the random players the Sox have had who have actually made the Midsummer Classic next on Locked On White Sox. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your performance and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And it's the All-Star break for the White Sox. They won't be back in action until this Friday against the Kansas City Royals. First pitch on the 19th is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. No, I don't have a puffy cheek. I'm just sucking on this Hall's cough drop. I cannot shake this head cold that I've had, inner ear infection. This ear right here, for those not watching on YouTube, pointing my right ear, has just been filled with pressure. If I could get a pin needle in there, I would do anything to get this out of my ear. I am going to an ENT, but they're all booked up, and that was an interesting experience. They're like, well, we could see you in August. Like, I was told I had a perforated eardrum in my left ear. Should I really wait that long? Like, oh, yeah, we can try to get you in 10 days. I'm like, thanks. Thanks a lot. But man, I feel like I have the plague right now, and I'm battling through it, folks. Well, there's no greater way to get guys talking than bringing up random ball players. As the saying goes, nothing will separate a man from the irrational love he has for that random bullpen arm from his youth. Talking about you, Talking about you, Scott Radinsky. When I thought the Sox list of all-star representatives, I went through it and I was like, man, there are some random players. There are some huge randos who actually turned a career season into an all-star appearance. So let's go over them right now. Avi Garcia was basically known as a disappointment for on the South Side, except for 2017 when he had that 330, 380, 506 slash line, and that actually earned him a nod as the Sox lone all-star representative that year. James McCann, he also turned in his career 2019 season into an all-star appearance, and the Sox should have never signed Yasmani Grandal. I would have rather just ran with McCann. Reliever Jesse Crane, he was named an all-star in 2013, although he was hurt and unable to throw in that game, but he had a 0.74 ERA that year. How about Esteban Loaiza? He made back-to-back appearances, and he actually started the 2003 All-Star game. Remember when wins mattered for a pitcher? That was about when it started to end that time. He had a 30-14 record during that stretch, although thankfully he was traded for Jose Contreras. James Baldwin actually did make an all-star team in 2000. He was always a solid pitcher. But remember 2002, that's when it was him and Cal Eldred were kind of pitching the Sox along with how they were hitting. Sox had that, Jim Parquet and Mike Soroka. And then three of those guys just got absolutely, and Mike Soroka, all four got injured, and it just sunk the Sox in the playoffs. Richard Dotson, he also got to the All-Star game in 1984, and actually from 81 to 84, he was a darn good pitcher. But then his career started to tail off. Injuries affected him in 1985. And how about Pat Kelly? He got into the All-Star game in 1973 after Dick Allen had an injury, so Kelly got the call instead of Allen. And Dick Allen really needs to be in the Hall of Fame. That's a crime that he did not get to go in the Hall of Fame while he was still on this earth. Come on. Put him in the Hall, you cowards. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss the historically bad path the Sox are on with a special guest. And feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding can the Sox possibly be competitive in 2025? Recapping day 2 and day 3 of the MLB Draft that the White Sox and their picks that the White Sox made. And then way back Wednesday, you can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.